hate or feeling angry, but more confused. Like I would ask my mom, why can't I run as fast, or why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not create me strong? Will He create me strong? Will I get better? My mother instilled within me from early on that my parents love me the way I am, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves me, and He loves anyone going through, health challenges or hardships, and that He didn't abandon or leave anyone, who remembers Him and who loves Him too. So it was very, like when your parents instill that love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and introduce Him that way, you feel loved and you feel accepted, so you don't necessarily have the room to hate yourself. Maybe you are hard on yourself or blame yourself or sometimes feel like a burden. I sometimes struggle with that, but you know that, okay, my parents love me, I can feel it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves me. I can feel it. And with time, I stopped questioning more, especially after I read more on the stories of the prophets, and after my mom would introduce who they were, what they were like. It made me realize that I'm not the only one going through hardships. And I'm not alone. This is just life's reality. Yeah.
That's true. That was great. Thank you, Sister Sandhya, for that remembrance. I feel like when we feel bad about ourselves, when we are so hard on ourselves, is because we compare ourselves with others. For example, I guess if you were having this ceremony celebrating our friends for the success, and we must be thinking that why can't I have the same success like our friends? We're trying to seek somehow a perfection perception from people around us. We want to have this kind of like having the nice vibe from the people around us, and that's the peer pressure that we have from our friends makes us. We would like to have this success. We would like to have this relationship, this perfect relationship. If I may ask you, Sister Sandhya and Nesar, why do you think people feel pressured to seek this perfect relationship, to seek this perfect life, to seek this perfection? Have you ever felt like you have this peer pressure looking at all other friends that have more physical abilities and perhaps more opportunities in life more than you, Sister Sandhya?
I think generally people might feel the pressure to seek perfection because there's that fear of being left out, of being excluded, of being rejected, and not belonging. And it's very natural to want to belong. It's very natural to want to be accepted. It's very natural to want to grow and progress. But somewhere along the lines, we've lost our way. Rather, we're hardwired to want to be accepted, but we need to work towards acceptance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and getting into Jannah. But we're focused on this world because this is what we can see. We cannot see the hereafter. We know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists, but we cannot see Him. And the reason why it's generally harder for people with disabilities because we apparently look imperfect or we are perceived as imperfect. Our imperfections are at the forefront. That's why we face rejection. That's why we face being excluded. That's why we apparently miss out. So it's that fear. So I think that's why. And as for peer pressure and feeling the need to be perfect, I was too busy trying to finish physical tasks, so I didn't really feel that pressure from my peers. But if I had to describe pressure from peers, it would be worrying if they felt comfortable with me. So I will not necessarily hide my disability, but I will not highlight it because I want them to feel comfortable, even if it's putting me in a more difficult position because I might need their help. So that's how I felt pressured with my peers, especially when my disability was more invisible.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Sis Nadia, Nesar, for that, for sharing that. Yes, brothers and sisters, thank you for tuning in to our IG Live tonight. With us today is Sister Nadia Nesar, Iman's new author, and also her husband, Abu Shakur, and we're going to talk about her latest book with Iman Publication that will be released during KL International Book Fair that will be held between 26th of May until 4th of June. So if you guys are around KL, Kuala Lumpur, please be at World Trade Center. And Iman's booth, we are located at 4th floor, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 4th floor, and just search the biggest booth and you'll find Sister Nadia Nesar booths over there, inshallah. We have various promotions. You guys cannot miss this, inshallah. Right, just now you mentioned about your mother being your core of moving of trying to figure things out. And with you right now is your husband, Abu Shakur. Hi, brother Abu Shakur.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yes, as a caretaker, I like to ask some questions about being the caretaker for Nadia Nesar, Sister Nadia Nesar. If you can share with us your experience as a caretaker, what was the challenges that you faced being a caretaker? Was it something that you thoughtfully taking decision being a caretaker for Sister Nadia, or yes, can you share with us the experience?
Well, because she was born with this disability, so it's not like I didn't know about it before marriage, and that is something I did consider before marriage. Even my mother-in-law was quite. She kept asking me to if I was sure about this because it's a lot of responsibilities and whatnot, and I reassured them that it's something that I'm committed to. And I mean, you would have thought there would be a lot to do as a caretaker, but really, the tasks aren't that much at all. I mean, like it's like a routine for me now, and it's not burdensome or anything to me. I mean, initially there was a lot to learn because there's some specific things for Sadia that only applies to her. But you know, as we've been married for what 7-8 years now, and it's just like a daily routine for me now, and I don't even think much about it at all. But in terms of the most difficult things that the challenges that I would say caretaker would go through, not specific for my case, but maybe for others as well, is that because you're constantly, I mean, when you go out, you're with your spouse or the one you're taking care, you're caring for, you witness the marginalization of those with disabilities, and how I can see that what she goes through, like when the way that people talk to her and the way that certain people approach her or treat her, I can see it with my own eyes. So some would say, some without the actual experience would think that, oh, it's just because, like I know someone who's just say like, oh, it's just because she has she's disabled, so they might perceive it differently, but we don't actually mean it that way. But you know, for someone who's with her, I can see her perspective and I can empathize with her. So I think there's a lot of education that's required in this respect, and I hope that through her books and whatnot, and even her talks, that will enlighten people on how to approach people with disabilities, whether it's visible or invisible.
When you saw that thing, when you saw all the circumstances that people somehow have this certain gaze on Sister Sandhya Nesar, the way that they talk to Sister Sandhya Nesar, perhaps different than they talk to a normal person. How does that make you feel as her husband? Does it make you feel sad, or yes, how did that make you feel?
I mean, of course it infuriates me. And I tried, in the first instance, I would just try to move her away from that situation. And I'll try to take her mind off it because it's not a nice feeling, right? And I'll try to joke around just to loosen her up so she doesn't get tense and everything. But it's a not an everyday occurrence, but it happens quite often. And unfortunately, well, I mean, we do go out to like a lot of Muslim events and whatnot, and then it's unfortunate to see it within our community, you know, and which is why I think there's we need a great deal of education in this respect.
Yeah. Yes, I believe that as well. And yes, perhaps when we invite Sister Sandhya Nesar, we can plan something to educate people on that, inshallah. And as a caretaker, Brother Abu Shakur, how has that experience being a caretaker for Sister Sandhya? Does it make you a better person? Makes you a better husband, perhaps?
I mean, you tell me. I think me a better Muslim. All seriousness, I mean, I would hope to believe that it made me more responsible. I mean, prior to me becoming a Muslim, I wasn't responsible at all. You know, I was not a family guy or anything. I remember when I was still in uni in the UK, and I visited Hong Kong. Was it just for the Christmas holidays? I wouldn't. As soon as I landed, I went straight to my friend's house. I didn't even go home for a week until my friend basically said, "Don't you have to go home?" You know, like basically kicked me out. So I wasn't a family guy at all. And when I became a Muslim, I became more of a family guy. But now that I mean, after I became married, I became even more so. Mostly because like of the care that's required. But that's you know, it's all linked together. So I hope it would like I said, it made me a better, I mean, more responsible as a person.
Inshallah. How great Allah plans is, right?
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, that was amazing. Yes, for brothers out there, get married and you'll change immediately. One last question for Brother Abu Shakur, inshallah, before I reveal the name of the book that Sister Sandhya will be releasing with Iman. I'm sure that there are lots. I'm not sure if among the listeners over here there are some of them caretaker themselves. If you guys out there, please comment below. If you guys are a caretaker for any family members that have difficulties physically. If I can ask Brother Abdul Shakur, if there are anyone who are listening right now, perhaps has been this difficulties of being caretaker for their family members, what kind of advice would you like to give to them, or perhaps some take-home message for caretaker out there?
Right. I think first and foremost, especially when you're going through tough times, you have to first ask yourself, why are you doing this? You know, and then once you get that answer, ask him why, and keep digging to the root of that question, and eventually get to the answer of, oh, it's because for the sake of Allah. But if you take a step back and look at the process of asking the question why, you'll see that you know, you want to be there for that person, and that person can't do anything for themselves and whatnot. So eventually just realize that you're the only one who can do it for that person, and that person has no one else to depend on. And I think that would make you more responsible in that respect, and just emphasize, like, we just be more have more empathy towards the other person, because they don't want to disturb you or anything, but they have no choice, right? So just remember that you're their strength, you're their legs, arms and legs. You know, without you, it would be very, very difficult. And we're so sucked up into the dunya life, and we forget that this dunya is really short. So just look at what's in it for you in the hereafter as well, if it helps. You know, that everything that you do is for this, you get reward, inshallah. And you know, and just be there for that person, inshallah, everything will be okay.
Thank you, Brother Vishakar, for that. Yeah, that was, I think, one point from you mentioned about, when you mentioned about think about the afterlife, the hereafter. Yeah, our life is short, and it's not just about us. We live for others as well. And Vishakar is a living proof of that, when he decided to be the caretaker for Sister Sandhya and Nesar. And yes, brothers and sisters who are still with us, inshallah, tonight is our first prelude for KLIBF, Kuala Lumpur International Book Fair, that will be held between 26th of May until 4th of June. And with us tonight is Iman's very new author, Sister Sandhya and Nesar, who will be releasing a new book entitled, what was it called, Sister Sandhya? Do you remember the title?
Heart That Remembers.
Heart That Remembers. And we shall talk about the book, inshallah, right now. Heart That Remembers. Before you write Heart That Remembers, you also has written a book called Strength from Within, which is about your life of being disabled physically, and you're trying to derive strength from the stories of Prophet, which you mentioned earlier with your mother. If I can ask you, when you write this first book, Strength from Within, is there any connection actually? How did you find connection between your struggle being physically disabled with the stories of the Prophet? Are there any connection at all?
Yeah, so, well, I wrote that book first, Strength from Within, but it will come out later, next year, through Q. And I released the first chapter on my website, so if anyone wants to read. But when I was hospitalized as a child, that's when my mom gave me books on stories of the Prophet. And I found comfort in that, especially when my parents would go home to be with my brothers and sleep. I was at the hospital, and not only that, I was in the isolation room. So I was alone in a room, and I was young. I was 8 years old. And before leaving, my mom once told me that Yusuf alayhi salam was also alone when he was in the well, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was there. And that comforted me. And I made a promise back then to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when I was in the hospital that when I get out, inshallah, and when I grow up, when I can, I really want to write all the stories of the prophets and share how it helps me. So as an 8-year-old, I made that promise. And that's how that book came about. It's my way of fulfilling a promise I made as an 8-year-old. So that's the backstory.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that led to your second book about Heart That Remembers. And I just now saw a question from one of the audience asking about what is it about. So that is my next question, actually, Sister Sandhya. Can you share with us what is Heart That Remembers is all about, and what inspired you to write that book? If Strength from Within is about stories of the Prophet, what is the inspiration behind Heart That Remembers that will be released during KLIBF?
Well, Hearts That Remember has a very interesting backstory. Like Stories of the Prophet is applying stories of the Prophet in our lives. Hearts That Remember is applying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name and seeing how we can call him and remember him and apply it in our lives. I started writing it after writing the first book, Strength from Within, because I felt like, I felt sad that the prophets are not here. I know they're not here, but I missed them after writing that. I didn't know how to not miss them. And I missed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also it was during Ramadan time, and I couldn't fast because of my health. I couldn't go to the masjid because of the stairs. And I would not have that much strength that sometimes I would lie down and pray, and sometimes I would feel so tired. And I felt like I needed to fulfill my spiritual needs. I thought for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most I can do is reflect and write. And I thought, okay, maybe I should write poems on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names. So that's how it started. And I would do that during Ramadan, even the Ramadan during the pandemic. And I had no intention of compiling a book. Mm-hmm. It was only after my maternal auntie passed away that I thought, okay, this needs to be a book because she has no children. I'm her daughter. I hope this could be her legacy. I hope she can have reward. So I compiled 99 poems, or 100, but on 99 names. And then I submitted it to Iman, the publisher. And then I was advised to change it into a chapter book. Mm-hmm. So just select some of the poems and put it within this book with the theme of, how in society people in general try to conform and chase perfection when we are imperfect, how to bring in my disability experience of embracing imperfections and turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is perfect. Perfection belongs to him. So that's how the book came about. And the book goes into the reality in our communities and how to embrace our innate nature as human beings, how to reconnect with our purpose, how to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when we chase perfections, we risk forgetting our life's purpose. We risk denying our human emotions. We risk not focusing on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and, realizing how we need to turn to him. When we chase perfection, we are at risk of losing peace. We become unsettled. We will go through more internal battles. So this book is a means to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have our hearts, remember our nature, our purpose, remember the vulnerable within our communities. Just remember, and how to mostly apply Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names and attributes in the form of dua, how to pour to him, express our needs, our emotions. So that's the gist of Hearts That Remember.
Do not give any spoilers, Sister Sadia. but thank you for sharing that inspiration. You mentioned about the community just now. You wrote this book in within your mind something about you trying to educate the community about they have to have this behavior, the nice behavior towards this disability, or you're trying to give you want to educate the community about be nice to the physical disabilities. I saw someone wrote in the comment section just now, how do you think this book will benefit the readers? Yes, so my question would be, how do you think your book, Heart That Remembers, will benefit the book and also educate the community on physical disabilities?
Hopefully, with Allah's mercy, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and permission, this book can be a means to demonstrate that people with disabilities, we have the things as any other humans because we're humans. We go through feelings of loneliness, not because of thinking low of ourselves, but because we're human. All humans are bound to feel lonely. And hopefully this book can be a means to help anyone, whether someone who has a disability or not, on how to navigate during life's hardships, how to safeguard our hearts to have peace, or is it even possible to have peace? How to remember Allah's Father and not forget our purpose, and how to live a fulfilling life that is focused and not in a way where we are trying to follow the trends within the community, but in a way that we are rooted in Islamic history and rooted in, trying to understand who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is and, connect with Him and not feel alone. This book is for anyone going through hardship, even for anyone who may not be Muslim. It's for anyone. It's a means to understand disability and Islam and our Creator.
Thank you, Sister Sandhya. Yes, brothers and sisters, with us tonight is Sister Sandhya Nesar and her husband, Bishakur. She is Iman's new author for the upcoming book that will be released during Kuala Lumpur International Book Fair that will be held between 26th of May until 4th of June. And the book titled Heart That Remembers will be available at our booth during that book fair. So if you guys like this kind of content, tonight's IG Live is relatable to you, you might want to get this book at our booth during Kuala Lumpur International Book Fair, inshallah. Sister Sandhya Nesar, I have few more questions before we end our session tonight. So if you were to just give a bit of before that, I believe that you want to share something about an excerpt or poems. I'm not sure. If you want to read an excerpt from your book, please do so, inshallah.
Okay. I have an excerpt, like not a poem, even though I love the poems and I wouldn't know which one to choose, but I'll read it out loud now. Okay. This life is a gift. The fact that our hearts beat is a gift. It might be hard to look at life as a gift when going through calamities. We might feel at more than we feel at. We may have discovered how to safeguard peace, but striving still feels overwhelming. It is a lot easier to put our guard down than to navigate our hearts with a shield. It is easier to go with the flow of modern day norms of competitions, comparisons, and the chase than go against the tide. The act of going against the tide requires us to remove that superficial surface that could safeguard our hearts from getting hurt and forming scars. It requires us to uphold our values, own our vulnerabilities, and embrace our imperfections. Accepting our imperfections may appear like dishonoring ourselves, but it is rather the opposite. It means to honor ourselves, our hearts, is to choose to be real. It consists of listening to our feelings, our bodies, and expressing our needs. There is no greater way to honor our self-worth than by feeling worthy to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask for him, from him. Yes.
Thank you, Sister Sandia. If I can ask you, why did you choose that excerpt? Was it something special when you write the book, or yes, why did you choose that excerpt to read during this life?
Because I think it sums up the book of how we feel conflicted to follow the norms and, chase perfection just to be accepted instead of embracing. And it kind of sums up the harms of doing so. We might think we gain by following the norms or having that perfect life, but we actually end up losing more. And we end up dishonoring ourselves. We may not realize it. We might think we're climbing up the ladder, but we're actually degrading our worth. And we end up being in more loss because we get distracted instead of up. And there's nothing more worthy for a human being than to turn to him and ask from him.
Thank you, Sister Sandia. Yes, brother and sister, that's a bit about the gist of the book Heart That Remembers, written by Sister Sandia Nesar. That we live in these modern days where we chase for perfection, and life is all about perfection, because that is something that is shown in our social media. We want that kind of perfect life, and when we were hit by rejection, with failure, with loneliness, we stopped. We don't know how to navigate this sense of unsuccess, and we live to be very perfect. We try to embrace our perfection, which it's nothing. Perfection is nothing about human, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect. This book trying to address these stages of, we have to accept our imperfection to be perfect. Just like Sister Sandia Nesar chat with us just now. With this book being released during this post-pandemic era, where people or community trying to find perfection in our social media, in your opinion, why do you think people have to read this book, and why do you think this book about 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something that people need to read more about with this kind of circumstances happening around of our life?
Because of social media, we have a lot more distractions, and we have higher risk of losing our way. And also, modern day society is so fast paced. There's so much information out there that we need something to ground us. And there's no better way to be grounded, to have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as our center and our focus. And there's no better way to understand him or know who he is by understanding that his attributes, his names, and what that means, and how we can apply it in our lives. So that's why I think it's important, especially today. In modern day society.
Mm-hmm. And how has remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually shaped your perspective on life, Sister Sandia Nesar? You've been talking about this, we have to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to reflect on the imperfection that we have. If I were to ask you, and perhaps Abdul Shakur as well, how has remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shaped your perspective towards life, towards this imperfection?
Yes, remembering that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect, and that we are not alone in this life, and that it's okay that we have imperfections, that we feel sad, that we find life hard. That's okay. We are meant to turn to him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're meant to ask from him. And it's less scary when you think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his attributes, for example, like Al-Wali, which means the guardian, the protecting friend. So when you feel scared or when you feel alone, just call and remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as al-Wali. So when you think about this life and how life is hard, and how we are imperfect and we have many flaws, then remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give you that sanctuary and that, safety, that we're not alone and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us.
And
If I can just add,
yep. Brother Shakur, yes.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, like it's just we're so sucked up into dunya, and so by remembering Allah, that Allah is in control of everything, then you'll be more relieved, and you put more trust in Allah and His decree. I think that's also something to add to the for those who are caretakers as well. That a lot of times you'll feel that this tough road ahead, or why is it more difficult for us as a caretaker or for the person with disabilities. But if you just reflect back on what's happened in the past, you realize everything's happened. Everything happened without any issues. At the end of the day, Allah has been looking out for us, for everyone, and Allah won't burden us in what we can bear. So it's a good reminder for everyone, especially, and also the fact that we claim to love Allah, but if we don't really understand Him, especially His names, so it's a bit contradictory. Like we should know His names, we should understand His attributes to claim that we love Allah. So it goes beyond just saying La ilaha illallah. We should really act upon it, and we should understand Allah more. And I think that will help us all with our lives as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Brother Abu Shakur. And yep, Heart That Remembers, book written by Sister Sa'dia Nesar, try to nurture the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our life. And inshallah, it will be released during Kuala Lumpur International Book Fair, which you guys can attend during between 26th of May until 4th of June in the World Trade Center, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. My last question to Brother Shakur and Sister Sa'dia Nesar, if you guys both can answer separately. This experience, Abu Shakur as the caretaker and Sister Sa'dia Nesar being physically different than a normal person. What does this experience, these circumstances, these hurdles and struggles teach both of you about your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I'd like to end the question, the live with that take-home message, inshallah. What does this experience teach both of you about relationship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Yeah.
You go first.
Okay.
Okay.
I think parents, like whether it's marriage or having parents or siblings or anyone that loves us, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. And marriage is not everything, but if we are married and we have someone caring for us, that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy before anything else. And also, this experience taught me that we are all vulnerable. Just because one is more dependent on the other doesn't mean that, that person has less value. We are all dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides who to make more dependent over the other as a form of growth, as a form of progress. And just because someone might have a disability doesn't mean that they cannot comfort or be a strength to their loved ones. Mm-hmm. We can still be a strength to our loved ones, and we can still comfort. And disability can be a form of mercy. It is a form of mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a form of protection as well. Because if, for example, if you're not disabled, physically disabled, you can go out more, you can get more lost. So it's a form of protection. It doesn't mean that we should not remove the barriers and accommodate. We should accommodate. But there is Allah Subhanahu's hikmah and mercy. And sometimes I think if I didn't get sick, if I was not hospitalized, then maybe I would never have written both books. This is part of the journey. This is part of the process. And this is hopefully my way towards Allah Subhanahu and hopefully He accepts. So everything works out for a reason, and Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is watching over all of us, and we are not alone.
Thank you, Sister Nesar. And yes, Brother Abu Shakur.
For me, you know, when like I'm asked about this stuff, I'm like, you know, like just trying to put in words, the sentence. Me being married to Sadia, even though I'm the caretaker, sometimes I feel I'm the one who's being taken care of. Because I think without her reminders and her iman and just her overall guidance on what I should do and whatnot, I think I'd be more lost. So when someone's asked like about like how is it going to be like, I mean, how is it like with me being the caretaker one? I don't really see like that I'm doing her a favor or anything. I think as a matter of fact, I think she's doing more favors to me than I am to her, because like I said, this life is short, you know, and it teaches me that's what it teaches me about life, and that Allah is the one who put us together. He knows my imperfections. He knows how to balance me, and I'm reminded of that through this relationship.
Thank you, Brother Shakur. Thank you. Yeah, I'm kind of like speechless. Thank you, Brother Shakur, for that. I, for one, feel really honored to talk to both of you tonight. I learned a lot, and this is my first experience as well. Talking about this topic, it's not something that I'm familiar with. Yes, thank you, Sister Sadia Nesar and Brother Abu Shakur, for this experience. Inshallah, I'd like to meet you guys, both of you, in person so that we can have more topic to talk about without this kind of limitation. Inshallah, I'd like to see you soon this year. If you guys have time to come to Malaysia, we'd like to accommodate that. And yes, inshallah, brothers and sisters. Yep, that's our honor, pleasure with us. Yes, brothers and sisters who are listening with us, this is our new author, Sister Sadia Nesar, and her husband, Brother Abu Shakur. Sister Sadia will be releasing her latest book with Iman Publication, titled A Heart That Remembers. And the book is about the 99 names of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. There's a bit of story of reflections from Sister Sadia Nesar and poems on the names of Allah. There are lots of lessons and stories that you will get most benefit from, inshallah. So I'd like to assure and convince you guys to go to Kuala Lumpur International Book Fair between 26th of May until 4th of June. And it will be held at World Trade Center, Kuala Lumpur. And we'll be launching Sister Sadia Nesar book at the book fair, inshallah. But sadly, she can't join us for the book launching. But perhaps we can plan something with her, perhaps in this year after Kuala Lumpur International Book Fair is over. I think that's all the time that we have tonight. And do you guys have any last words you want to impart to the listeners over here, perhaps before we end the session?
Thank you for having us, and I really look forward to the listeners reading and growing closer to Allah Subhanahu, especially applying His names in their own lives and making it part of their journey and their growth. And thank you for having us, and I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Me too. And Brother Shakur, you have any last words, perhaps?
Not really. Just thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure being on this live, and I hope, inshallah, we get to meet in person, as you said, and I hope the listeners would get the book and draw lessons for themselves, because it's not just for people with disabilities. It's just for anyone who's going through hardship. There will be times when we go through bad times, but it's we have to remember Allah in both in good times and bad times. And I hope this book would help people remember this.
Yep.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you, Sister Nesar and Brother Shakur. See you guys again, inshallah, next time.
Inshallah.
Assalamualaikum.
Yes, brothers and sisters, still with us. So tonight's session is about Sister Nesar's latest book, which you guys can get during Kuala Lumpur International Book Fair, which will be held during between 26th of May until 4th of June. Heart That Remembers is about struggle of the author being physically disabled, and she finds Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in her routine, trying to find and navigate ways in her life. If you guys feel relatable to it, this content of the book, I assure you and convince you to go to our booth, Iman's booth, on the 4th floor of World Trade Center. And yes, the book will be available during the KLIBF. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and yes, have a good night.